Cool.
All right, thanks. Welcome to the ceramic community call, everyone. So another week. I think we do these on a 3-week schedule. My mind is a little bit all over today. Yeah, let's jump in. So we have a few updates from kind of the 3Box Labs team about progress of ceramic. We just released V1 of the SDKs, so we'll jump more into that later. But before we kick off, I would like to ask anyone here if they have any topics or topics they want to discuss or things they want to demo or anything else. Let's just make a list of things to talk about during the meeting. So anyone have any topics in mind? Could be questions or yeah, things you've been wondering about. Maybe you're wondering about how to design your application build on top of ceramic or something else. And yeah, feel free to just write them in the chat as well if you prefer that. Yeah.
I've recently stumbled upon the doc types in the ceramic documents, and I was thinking about implementing some type of own doc type, but it was hard for me to find certain documentation in how to code or how to implement or conceptualize that kind of stuff, and I was just wondering where I could get that information.
Cool. Yeah, let's talk about that. We renamed them to stream types, but let's dive into that once we get to it. But that's a really good question. Anyone else have any other topics on mind? Or does that everyone used to kind of want to naturally flow the conversation instead? All right, so feel free to, if you come up with topics during the conversation, feel free to just type them in the chat and we'll pick them up as we go. So I think I'll kind of start handing it over to Spencer to talk about the V1 release of ceramic.
Cool. Yeah. So yesterday we released v1.0.0 of the ceramic packages on NPM, which is an exciting milestone. We're getting very close to our mainnet launch through the early launch program. We have a few partners lined up who will be the first batch to onboard onto mainnet, and then over time we'll be onboarding more and more partners onto mainnet. And if you're interested in getting on that list, I'm sure Danny can point you in the right direction. There's a form to get access to the mainnet. So yeah, 1.0.0 launches, which has a whole bunch of stuff. It's a big release. There's some internal cleanups which should improve performance in some cases and memory utilization, things like that. But the biggest, most notable changes are to the developer APIs. And there's a few different pieces of things that have changed. The first and the one you'll probably notice right away when you try to upgrade is, well, I guess there's a few that you'll notice right away, but one piece is we've changed. The older versions of ceramic used to come preloaded with DID resolvers. Ceramic heavily relies on DIDs, decentralized identifiers. Every stream created against ceramic has a controller, which is a DID, as who authored the stream and who's allowed to make updates to the stream. And so ceramic needs to verify every update to a stream to make sure that it was performed by the proper DID. And so we used to come preloaded with a resolver for keydid. So just straight a public private key pair directly and 3ID, which is our did method built on top of Ceramic, which is more flexible than a key did because it allows things like key rotations. You can map multiple keys to a single identity. We used to have those preloaded with Ceramic, but it was causing a circular dependency issue where like 3ID relies on Ceramic, Ceramic relies on 3ID. So in order to break that, now when you set up a Ceramic node, you'll have to provide a DID instance with the resolvers for whatever DID methods you want explicitly. This is nice in some ways because it makes it very easy to add new did resolvers, for instance, as like the NFT did resolver gets ready. You know, there's a lot of work going on that. It's getting close to being ready to integrate with Ceramic. But we encourage anyone running a Ceramic node to make sure that they at least support 3ID and key did, because those are the most common that you're likely to see. So I should be able to see my screen now. I'm screen sharing. We've updated the developer documentation. So now in the build section after the installation, there's a new page on configure your DID, which will go through how to import key did and 3ID, set up a resolver for it, set up a DID, and then set that into your Ceramic instance. So that's one change.
I guess just and before we jump on to something else, if you're running the Ceramic daemon, like running a Ceramic node locally with like the HTTP API, then the key did and 3D will be provided automatically, because you don't like this is only when you're using like the JavaScript API of Ceramic.
Right. Yeah. The node, the daemon node will come preloaded and be able to resolve things as needed. But if you're using like the HTTP API in client side in your application, it'll still be necessary. I guess the resolver doesn't matter as much in that case. All that matters is the provider for signing and messages. So that's this side. Yeah. The flip side of the did resolver is the did provider, which is how you actually construct rights to Ceramic and sign them.
Yeah, you're right. So like the Ceramic daemon actually only uses the resolvers because the daemon itself doesn't really do any authoring. Every author you do through the daemon comes through the HTTP API. So the providers are actually mostly useful when you're using the HTTP client or when you're using Ceramic core directly.
Yeah. Cool. Any questions on that before we move on to the other things that have changed in V1? Cool. So the other big change, which I think Joel alluded to, is just in general, we've updated the language from instead of saying that everything in Ceramic is a document with a different doc type, we're saying everything in Ceramic is a stream with different stream types. It's more generic and flexible. So the most common stream type is still the tile document, and that is still a classic JSON document. But we might have more stream types over time that might have different data structures and might not be document based. The Cape 10 link is really not really a document. It's a cryptographic link between a blockchain account and a DID. And so it's a sort of a different structure, but it's still built on top of the same stream based DAG that underlies all Ceramic streams. And so then I think the last and biggest piece is restructuring a bit the APIs with how you create and update and interact with Ceramic streams. Previously, so there's this Ceramic API interface, which is either an HTTP client or the Ceramic core. Ceramic core is like the full implementation if you want to run like a complete node. And then the HTTP client is lighter weight that connects to a Ceramic core node. And that's more likely what you would run in browser. You can run the core implementation in browser, but there are some restrictions because like that node is not going to be very long lived if it's in browser. If it's running in a browser tab, you can't really put any data there that's going to live for a long time. It still needs to connect to a longer running Ceramic node. So the Ceramic API used to have a method for like creating a document. That's been removed. The Ceramic API create document method's been removed. And this is because we realized that trying to shove all of the different types of streams that might ever exist behind one unified API was going to require that API to be very loose. It was very hard to do that meaningfully. And we wanted to enable different stream implementations to have APIs that are more custom fit to the specific stream type. So we've moved all the functionality for creating and updating streams off into the specific stream implementations themselves. So now for example, rather than saying ceramic.create document of type tile, you would say tile document.create and pass it in the ceramic API to use to communicate with the network. We think this is actually a really great improvement because it gives much stronger type safety. It makes the APIs much more specific. So whereas previously you would have had to pass like a big object with like a content field and a metadata field, now you have like, a content argument, a metadata argument that are strongly typed.
I don't know if you mentioned this, Spencer, but also with this kind of larger API change with V1, we also changed the name of doc type to stream type. So I know, Frayne, you asked about like how you can create a doc type. That's now called a stream type. So that might be like a little bit confusing, right? Because you came into this right as we were changing the name. But yeah, that's just a heads up. And yeah.
Yeah. And I think you really see as much as it is useful for like the tile document, I think the power of the stream specific write APIs are even more clear when you look at something like Cape 10 link, where this was sort of the old API way to create a Cape 10 link. So this is no longer accurate, but this was how it used to work. Would be you would ceramic.create document, say it's a Cape 10 link, and then you have to kind of know how to structure it, right? Like there's no clear, because you have to know that, okay, we're creating a link from this blockchain account. So we embed it in the controller, it's in the metadata. And then we want to link that to a DID. We take the link proof, we put it in the content field and we update it, right? Like there's a lot of internal structure of how Cape 10 links work that you have to kind of know. Now the new way, I think, is much clearer. You have Cape 10 link from account, and you give it your blockchain account ID. And now you've created a link for this blockchain account. And then if you want to set it to a DID, you can just use set. This is coming from how 3ID Connect works, which manually creates the DID proof. You can even just call set DID with a DID string and an auth provider that is capable of creating the link proof, and it'll create the link proof for you. So I think the APIs are much more specific, clear. Cape 10 link. I don't know why that email protection is there. Here we go. That's what it actually looks like. So you've got like a Ethereum blockchain account address, create a link, and then if you want to get the DID that it's linked to, you can just call .did on it. If you want to set the DID, you just call set DID with the DID you have and a provider that's capable of creating link proofs for that blockchain. So this is the big changes to the developer API. It will probably, if you have application code or test code that you've written against the old APIs, it will likely break when you upgrade to v1.0. You'll have to update to the new APIs, but these should be fairly stable going forward and much more extensible for future stream types that might be added while providing stronger type safety and hopefully easier to understand APIs. And all of this has been updated on our documentation as of yesterday. And I guess the last thing to sort of say on that subject is, the v1.0.0 packages of Ceramic were released yesterday. We've also been working on updating the other packages that build on top of Ceramic. So a new version of the IDX library was also released yesterday. I think, what else was it, Joel? I think it was the 3ID DID provider was released yesterday with a new version built on the new APIs. The last piece that is not out yet is 3ID Connect, which is what we use for in-browser authentication to the Ceramic network. We are working on, that is in flight right now and should land very soon, hopefully today, if we're, if all goes well with the testing. If not today, then, in the next few days, shortly thereafter, we'll have a new version.
Yeah, it should likely be today.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think Sakis is like pushing out the last thing there. And yeah, we noticed that the old version of 3ID Connect has become kind of broken. So sorry about that, and that shouldn't have happened. We've recently done like a big refactor of the whole 380 Connect system, and we opted to like move fast to get the new version out rather than like spend a bunch of time trying to make that backwards compatible. Obviously, that's not something that will happen once like we're live on mainnet. Like then we will spend the time to like make sure everything is always backwards compatible. We should have done that now, but it didn't happen. So hopefully that hasn't been too much of a problem to you guys, and like the new version that supports the kind of new nice ceramic API should be out later today or this weekend.
Yeah, and I've even seen, I think, some of the comments in the chat. I think, Ivan, you were talking about how you were connecting with MetaMask and it worked before 3 days ago and then stopped working. This is likely that same issue. That was about 3 days ago when we upgraded our infra to the new version of Ceramic. And I think that's around the time that 3ID Connect broke. So when the new version of 3ID Connect gets released later today, hopefully, or shortly thereafter, upgrading to the new version of 3D Connect and all the new ceramic packages, everything should be stable at that point. So if you continue to have problems at that point, definitely please come into the Discord and let us know.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a note to that too, because you mentioned the infra update. So as a part of that update, which was about 3 days ago, we basically started getting a better mapping between our releases and what's on our infra. So like if you're running anything by default that's connecting to our Clay testnet, that is now mapped to our RCs. So anytime we have an RC, that will be on Clay. So if you are experiencing issues, definitely check that you're using a compatible version with Clay. If you want to use like the latest stuff that's on develop, like when you go to JS Ceramic, we have dev as the main repo there. So if you're just pulling directly from there and you want to use that, then you should use the dev unstable network, which is another network that we have live, similar to Clay, but it's just mapped to our develop branch. So if you are like experiencing issues, check those versions first, and you might be able to resolve it by just upgrading. If not, then definitely like give us a shout and we can try to debug things.
Cool. And obviously, if you're using the dev unstable network, it's in the name, but huge caveat that is where things are likely to break because things are moving fast there. The hope is that Clay should be more stable and more closely mirror production requirements, although obviously not fully to production. Don't put production data that you can't afford to lose on Clay, but at least the uptime and stability guarantees should be similar.
So I think we can move on to the first question or like first topic of discussion. So Frayne, you talked about, well, you said dog type. I guess that's all now like stream types. What was the thing you wanted to achieve there, and like what was unclear when you were trying to do that?
I've just recently started to get into the topic, and I was thinking about how to put it. I wanted to create documents that can only be modified if all the controllers of the document sign some kind of give a sign that they are. I'm sorry, I'm kind of. It's not.
It sounds like you want to do like some kind of multi-sig, right? Like it will only be updated if everyone signs it.
Yeah, correct. That's exactly what I wanted to implement. And I it's kind of hard for me to get into get into the material if I wasn't able to find a clear documentation that could help me get into the right direction. And so I thought I'd just ask whether it's possible and where to look for that information.
Yeah. Okay, maybe Spencer can fill out some more details here, but we don't have like a super well defined documentation for how to create your own stream types right now. That's something that I think we have like a small guide, but I think it's like the information there is lacking. That's definitely something that we want to do better, but I think the best way is probably to like, well, ask here and then ask in our Discord, then we can probably provide you with more specific pointers. There is a general interface that a stream type should implement. And I don't know, is there any other kind of resources or things you would highlight, Spencer?
Yeah, the docs are definitely pretty lacking in this area. The best bet is really honestly just to look at the source code at this point. You can look at how tile document and Cape 10 link are implemented. Basically, you have to implement both. There's for any new stream type, you have to add some code in two different places. There's one package for the definition of the stream type itself. So like for a tile document, there's a stream-tile package, which has the tile document class definition. There's also the handler. So there's a stream-tile-handler package, which has the tile document handler. And that's the logic for applying state transitions to the existing document. So those are sort of the two pieces you want to look at. Is you have to implement the new stream type itself, and then the handler for that has the transformation logic as new commits come in over the network. But yeah, there's definitely a lot we could do to make this clearer. But yeah, that's sort of the starting point. I would just say look at those two packages, try to mirror what they're doing, and then if you have questions, come to the Discord and we'll try to help you out.
Great, thank you very much. I'll look into it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And next, I think Ivan, you had a question, but maybe we answered it. But I think you had another question. That's right.
Real quick before we move on, is it worth just mentioning the Gnosis Safe integration that's coming down the pipe, since that seems relevant to what Frayne is working on?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different, but so some of you may be aware that we have an implementation of something called an NFT DID resolver. And the NFT DID resolver is basically, if you have an NFT, the owner of that NFT will be like the one that can like sign messages and create ceramic streams based on that DAD, or like using that DAD. And so Gnosis Safe is a smart contract system on Ethereum. And in a similar way to NFT DID, we can have that the owners of the safe, the safe is like a multi-sig on Ethereum for those who are not familiar. And yeah, so like any owner of the safe would be able to sign things on Ceramic based on the fact that they're owner of the safe contract on chain. So it doesn't actually solve the same issue because like there isn't like a multi-sig functionality yet, and that might be something that gets implemented in the DID standard, or like an extension to the DID standard, but that's kind of very not it's not something that's there right now. Right now, like any individual verification method in the DAD document will be able to sign on behalf of the safe DAD. But yeah, that's cool because now you can actually start having your multi-sig smart contracts have profiles and stuff like that on IDX. All right, so let's dive into your question. I think did your first question get answered by Spencer before on MetaMask and IPs? Okay, I see your comment in chat. Yes. Okay, so the other question is related to like guidance of like, you can create a ceramic document and you can create another document that points to the first document. Then you can update the first document to point to the second document. Is that kind of roughly? Yeah. So that's actually something in IPFS you can't really do that because you have kind of use only hash links, which means that you get like a DAG structure, meaning it's directed and acyclic. But in ceramic, you can actually do these kind of loops. And that's actually kind of more like a feature. If you think about the web, for example, you have different HTML pages hosted on like different servers, and they can link back and forth to each other. And similarly, you can create ceramic streams that link back and forth to each other. Was there any like specific concern you had like there, or like was there anything specific you were wondering about that? Yeah, feel free to unmute or answer in the chat. But if you have any like follow up on that. Okay. Anyone else? There was like clear to everyone what that the nuance there was. Okay. Well, I hope that answered your question, Ivan. So next, I think. Next, I think we have Brent. So you've been working on the SIGP 256R1 key DID resolver implementation. It's super cool. And I think you have like there's been some back and forth between you and like some other guys on the key compression versus non-compression. Do you want to give like an update on that, or did you have some question about that?
Yeah, I'm going off of a Stack Overflow implementation. I was looking at algorithms. It was actually something that Dave Longley from Digital Bazaar linked to. And it gave an implementation of decompression, and it used this library called Bigint. Okay, so I don't know at some point, but they moved support for big integers into JavaScript.
Yeah.
Except they don't have, it doesn't look like they have a means to do modular exponentiation in there. And that was in the Stack Overflow implementation of it. So I if I want to have something be lightweight and use the code in there, I don't know if I'm supposed to use it, but if it's open, then I need a modular implementation. So there's this library developed by a guy at a university. There's not really many people using it, but it's pretty lightweight, and it just does the modular exponentiation. Or there's the original Bigint library that does modular exponentiation, but it looks to be a little bit heavier, and it does some other features too. So
yeah, no, I used to look. Sorry.
Yeah. So
yeah, I looked at the link you sent for use the Bigint mod arithmetic. I mean, that seems nice. It seems super tiny, and it uses like the built-in Bigint. Like, to me, it doesn't really make sense to pull in the kind of big Bigint implementation, because that's like that. From my experience, it's always been a pain to use those kind of Bigint libraries, because like when you're dealing like using crypto, you usually have like different libraries that use like different implementations of Bigint, and you end up with like this huge dependency tree.
okay.
So I mean, this Bigint mod arithmetic like library that you found, like that seems pretty clean. So I would probably go with that.
Okay. Yeah. I was looking at it. It looked like he was aware of what he was doing. So
He was what?
he was aware of what he was doing. So that's definitely positive.
That's always good, dealing with this kind of stuff. Yeah, so is there like a consensus now on that we should use compressed keys for all dead keys?
I don't know yet. I don't think that particular thread had really went anywhere after a week or two ago. So
Okay.
it sounded like Manu thought it was a good idea, and or he just thought, well, hey, if it's easy to do, then yeah, I'll do it. But so sort of looked like things were going to move to the press key direction, although it's not in the spec to my knowledge yet.
Yeah, one thing that we could do to be a little bit kind of pushy is to, in the multi-codec table, you know, the table that contains all the multi-codecs, we can make a PR and basically specify this key needs to be compressed, and then we're kind of would force everyone to just do that. Because I think from like the protocol labs perspective, the ones that are maintaining that, I think it would make sense for them to kind of make that more clear, because otherwise people are going to be like, which one am I going to use? And if you end up like implementing the BigInt, using BigInt and this tiny library, I guess the other guys would appreciate like a small code snippet for how to do it.
Okay. Is there any problem with just trying to support both a compressed and decompressed key out of the box, kind of to err in the safe zone, or is there a problem with that?
I don't think there's a problem with it. I think the only thing is like it might cause confusion if like the R1 curve supports uncompressed keys, but like the K1 curve only supports compressed keys. But other than that, like I don't think it should be a problem.
Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for working on that. That's super awesome. I know that there are many people that want the R1 support. Cool. All right, let's see. Ivan, I think we talked about your same question. All right, I think that's it. Cody and Noak made some comments. Any other topics that anyone would like to raise or like chat about? Well, Oh, let me throw an idea out there. So I've been thinking about a new stream type. And so basically streams right now, the tile and the Captain link have these kind of logs, and you have to like validate them from the beginning and up to the latest kind of update. And so one other approach to streams in Ceramic could be that you use nonce in the signed message, and then basically the highest nonce and like proving like that it's been anchored would be the most valid one. And then you can basically like, instead of having to always like sync all of the history, you could just like get the state from like the latest update. Obviously that would have different trade-offs in terms of like the auditability and stuff like that of the history of events, and you could make that in a few different things. But the cool thing is with this would be that you basically sign a message that points to like an IPLD CID, and that could point to like a linked list of objects. It could point to like a Unix FS IPFS file system. It could potentially point to like a textile, like the tip of like a textile database. It could point to like a fission file system. It could point to what was it called, PeerGauss, or like an OrbitDB instance. And you can basically like have use like one thing to like point to all these different data types. So that's just something I've been thinking about as like a new type of primitive that Ceramic could support. It would require some like changes to the conflict resolution logic, but I think that's something we have been planning anyway. So I would love to hear any like thoughts on that approach, if that would be useful, or if kind of the approach that we have now with like a strong audit log is more valuable to you guys.
Can I take a crack at summarizing the key difference?
Yes.
The one thing I think we missed though is that you wouldn't be able to change the controller of this stream, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that the key differences between this and say a tile document is whatever this new stream would have a single fixed controller that can never be changed, which is a DID. You know, whatever the DID is that creates it is the only DID that's ever allowed to update it, and you cannot hand over ownership or controllership to a new DID, unlike tile. And then the other difference is you don't keep around historical versions of the stream. So,
well, you could.
Well, I guess you can still access it. You just don't have to. Yeah.
You don't have to sync it, but yeah, you could. You could have I mean, you could do different things. You could use like a binary blob, or you could store like a linked list of events, or you can store something else. Anything that you can reference to via CAD, essentially. But yeah, and then you might like create actually like doc types based on that have like specific kind of types of rules. But yeah, that's
one of the big advantages of this though, being that like right now, if you have a tile and there's lots of updates to it, the more updates are done, the longer the update chain, the history chain of the tile document becomes. And so then loading it, you have to sync the entire history chain. So the more times the stream is updated, the longer it takes to sync. With this new stream type, it would be constant time to sync a stream no matter how many times it's been updated, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think eventually we probably want to move the Captain link in this direction as well, because usually you just care about like what's the latest thing this Captain link points to.
Sounds really interesting. I mean, I feel like that could almost be the default for a lot of the streams we're creating right out of the gate, just because we don't necessarily have that have the requirement to have that long streamed history right out of the block. So I don't know. I mean, obviously just heard the idea, but it seems very promising, and I suspect a lot of other people find so too.
Cool. Yeah. So you don't expect to like need the history of like changes necessarily, at least for your initial use cases.
Yeah, I guess I mean we haven't felt the need yet. So I mean that's what we're basing it off. But I guess I think for a lot of the streams we've created so far, performance is going to be the most critical factor, and so we would, yeah, I think if you do build it and it's live, then I think we would try and start using it almost immediately.
Cool. Okay. Keep that in mind. It's probably not something we'll start like tomorrow, but I do think that it seems like it could be like a powerful primitive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, I guess related to this, would there still be a concept of snapshots for tile documents? Where would be new stream types to replace that? There might be. I mean, I think it all depends kind of on like if tile documents end up not being super used, then like that might not be a priority. If people still have a huge need for tile documents, then like there's likely going to be more development on tile documents. Like it kind of depends on like what people end up using in that sense. Like I think for sure, like tile documents are going to need snapshots at some point if a lot of people use them, and like we can't have the performance be like super bad. Yeah, so that's kind of my thinking there.
I think a lot of the complexity comes down to changes in the controller DID, right? So like if tile continues to allow changing, like tile might continue to be useful because it enables changing the DID, whereas this new stream type would not allow changing the DID of the controller.
Yeah, there might be like some hybrid like document type where you use kind of something like tile but like multi-owner to like define a set of members in a stream, or like controllers in a stream, and then you use like something more like this new doc type thing to make comments, and then so you can kind of, I think you can combine them in interesting ways. Because the kind of first anchor rule that tiles have for like conflict resolution is really good when you're dealing with like changing member sets and like changing owner in a like an identity centric way. All right, so I see Ivan had another question. I'll read it unless you want to unmute and talk about it. When I have a DID from a user and have a JSON, the DID is in the person schema. So you need to reference the other schema content to the DID and not the person's schema. This means that the controller is always bound to the DID and not the person. So I assume that you mean that if you want to create a tile document in Ceramic, you have like one controller that's DID. And if for some reason the content of the document needs to contain like the DID as well, there is no way to like enforce that those are the same. Is that kind of what you're getting at? Right. So what's the problem that you're trying to solve, or like is that an issue that you'd like duplicate them, or yeah, what's the concern there? All right. I assume you're typing a response, but oh, is there best practice for how to put the refer to the document? No, I don't think there's a best practice right now. Like I would say like just put the, like either way, you're gonna have to have some logic that verifies that those are the same, or like if there's a reference to the controller. I would say the easiest thing is probably to put the DID also in the content of the document, and then like have some logic that verifies that they're the same. Because then you don't have to deal with like some custom schema for like how you refer to the controller of the document. But yeah, I think you're probably the first person that like hit this problem. So, okay, cool. I realize that this might seem weird, like having a conversation between me and then the chat for anyone that's like watching the recording, but hopefully that's fine. Ivan says thanks. All right, so I think that's all of the topics that we had. I see that we have like 10 minutes left, so anyone has any other topics or like thoughts or something? I see that Danny is unmuted. Or unmuted his video.
Nothing from me.
All right. Well, cool. And yeah, you'll have a webcam next time, Evan. Looking forward to seeing your face. Yeah, Brent, we can talk about authentication and P256 if you want.
Okay. Well, I don't know too much about this in that I've never implemented this, and it basically breaks down to me understanding Java web tokens a little bit more. I think that what would happen is something, maybe a ceramic node or something would send a challenge to my edge device with the nonce, and my edge device would have to create a response using that material to verify a DID document. So whenever you have, well, it was formerly ceramic create document, but in the discussion, I guess that for like a tile, and you create that, it asked, so okay, well, I created the document, but I guess when I wanted to post it, I need to do include authentication in that. So I thought that I needed to implement a challenge response algorithm. Is that kind of what's happening? I mean, I've been looking at that side a bit, and I haven't. I know you have the Edwards curve, the E251, and the Bitcoin curve, and I just had the part of those two that just basically create the 3ID document and create the dead key, and then the 3ID document is.
So what's the goal? What's the goal there? Do you want to create a 3ID document for your edge device, or do you just want to?
Right. I need a way to tell other agents, okay, well, hey, this is the public key for this edge device, and the edge device has to say, oh, I'm me. Well, initially it has to say I am me, which is the DID auth, and just said, well, yeah, I own that. I'm related to that DID document on the ceramic network. And well, I guess that's the initial kind of establishment. But once that's done, then I guess anybody can just say, okay, oh yeah, that's Joe. Well, it's really the public key talking to me.
Right. Sure. So I mean, yeah. Let me ask some question. So couldn't you just use the key DID as the identifier for the edge device? So you have the SICP R1 key as the identifier, and then
I guess that would be unique, right?
Yeah, it should be, and then you can just like create a new document using that if you want to put out some like metadata about the device or something like that.
Okay, and what would I have to create that document? Would that be with MetaMask Ethereum account, or
no? You wouldn't need, like, you only need to create. You only need to have like an interface that looks like the ID provider. It should have the same kind of interface as the ED25519 interface, or the SecPK1. I think the SecPK1 implementation that we have is outdated. But yeah, the ED25519 has like this DID provider interface. And if you can implement the same interface, but on the back side, it uses your edge device, and then you can just plug that into like the ceramic HTTP client, and then you should be able to like programmatically just create documents that are signed by that DID.
Okay. And I'll have to look into that too.
Yeah, but yeah, so that I don't think you need to have like a challenge response necessarily. Kind of like when your edge device signs like an update to a document, that kind of is the proof that like that device is in control of that key, right? So usually challenge response protocols you use when there's like a third party, like a server, and I want to prove to the server that I have control over that key. But in this case, we is creating this document, and anyone that like observes this document can see that, yeah, this is the key that controls this document.
Okay, so just as long as I implement the interface that I'm not going to say it, the Bitcoin and the network serves use, then I should be in the clear pretty much in summary.
Yeah, and actually, I think, let me think. So what's actually the interface you have to your edge device? Like, how do you make like signature requests and stuff like that?
Okay, right now what I have is pretty primitive. It's not on the Ceramic network. I have an edge device sending over the public key, the message, and the signature. So I can verify each individual message pretty much, and then when that's done, it just writes it to a MySQL database on my local machine. That's all I have. But I mean, in the future, I'd like to, I think, put it somewhere else.
Yeah, I think no, that's cool. But like, what's the API you use to like request that? Is that just like some kind of low level? Like, is that like, how do you communicate with the device? Is that like through USB or?
Yeah, I mean, there's no two-way. Okay, what? How do I tell it to start sending or?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty much sneakernet. It just it's a LoRa device which goes to a single channel gateway on an ESP32, and then from there it can go through a router, get on my network, and get to my laptop, and that's it. But there's no my laptop can't tell the LoRa device to start broadcasting, so I haven't implemented that yet.
Can you somehow tell the LoRa device to like what it's supposed to sign, or is it just like some pre-configured thing that it signs?
Yeah, some pre-configured stuff that signs. I mean, I could write the code. I'm thinking about writing the code to say, oh, yeah, I think you can do bidirectional stuff. You can receive as well as transmit. So
okay, yeah, because I think you need to do that in order to like tell it what the payload of the Ceramic document should be. Let me actually send you something. I'll send you. I'll ping you on Discord. The kind of, we have like a JSON RPC interface for like how you actually send the requests and response for the underlying thing that the ED25519 curve and the 380 provider, like the interface that they provide, like the kind of lower level thing to that.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll send you like a reference and see if that's useful. For you for this, but yeah, it seems super cool. Like, yeah, it would be so amazingly awesome if I could see like a Ceramic, like a document being created by like a LoRa device. That would be super cool.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge because we're going to have LoRa doesn't really have that much overhead, so it's like 200 byte packets, and I don't know how to solve that issue yet. Maybe you can, maybe you can link things together somehow. But
yeah, I mean, the nice thing is that the only thing you really sign over in the way Ceramic works right now is just the CID, and the CID is like 34 bytes or something.
Okay, that's doable then.
Yeah. Okay. Looking forward to see when you're making progress in that. Cool. I guess we're running up on time, so thanks everyone for joining. Last question in the chat: Stack Overflow channel. We don't have a Stack Overflow channel. Do you know how to create one, Ivan? Maybe you can help us. I don't know how to do it. But yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks. Nice. All right, I realize I'm doing this chat thing again. Well, thanks for joining, everyone. It was really great chatting with you all.
Next time on mainnet.
Next time, mainnet. Yeah.
Yep. See you on mainnet.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend.
You too.